Hi, my name is Nick James and I left King's in 1974 with my head full of Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin to study for the profession of architect. If you are thinking of doing this at university, you probably know that it's a 7-year course comprising a first degree, a second degree or diploma, and 2 year-long periods of practical experience working in offices. The academic parts of the course are taken in schools of architecture, which typically exist in universities or colleges, and their courses are vetted and approved by the professional body called the Architects Registration Board. What you might not know is that you don't have to return to the same school to do the second part. For example, I did my first degree at the Welsh School of Architecture in Cardiff and my diploma in Edinburgh University, whilst I did both periods of my professional practice in York. How did I get into building design? I think my experience is not typical. I didn't have any family background or particular interest in building design. I was inspired by a rather charismatic master at King's known as Doggy License, who explained the proportions of ancient Greek temples, but the subjects I really loved were maths and physics and drawing. My parents told me I could never earn a living in maths or physics or art, which incidentally is the opposite kind of advice I give to my own kids, but the careers master said those were ideal subjects to get into an architectural school. So, thinking of Greek temples in romantic sunlight, I decided to become a second Frank Lloyd Wright, took my portfolio and went for interviews. University was a great workout in diverse courses covering everything from contract law to structural services engineering, human studies, ergonomics, orbiting the hub of the design projects which architecture courses are centred on. It was quite hard to get my first job on the first year out after the BSc. I think I wrote about 50 letters, but they got me one interview and that was all I needed. After that, I never had any difficulty getting a job throughout my career. So with rather itchy feet, I followed a quite diverse career path. When I was 30, I was offered a partnership by a 60-year-old architect in private practice in Shrewsbury. He saw me as his pension plan, and I saw it as a fantastic opportunity for experience, which it was. After 10 years of historic building conservation and award-winning new work for private schools and some industrial design, I moved on to a position as principal architect for 2 local authorities, one after the other. This meant that I was managing multidisciplinary teams of about 15 to 20 people, including engineers, surveyors, and technicians. Our bread and butter was the design of school extensions, with occasional tidbits of museums, law courts and fire stations. After 7 years of that, I went back into a big commercial firm, and when I was 50, they sent me abroad to manage their projects in Kazakhstan. I retired 13 years later as the Technical Services Director of one of the biggest construction companies in the Middle East, having worked in Kazakhstan, India, Abu Dhabi, Dubai and Oman, with a portfolio which included hospitals, tower blocks, urban redevelopment and industrial complexes. If you think, as I did once, that architects are creative superstars like Norman Foster, you may be right. In the same way that if you can sing, you may be the next Taylor Swift. However, the profession allows and needs a wide range of people with a diversity of skills and types other than superstars. I realised by the time I qualified that I was not particularly talented in the creation of beautiful sculptural designs we all admire. I was more interested in developing other skills, like integrating the construction of a building and the services to make it habitable, and the managing of jobs on building sites. Then you have to keep your design buildable with available technology. And most importantly, the finished product should contribute some positive enrichment to the townscape and to the lives of the people who use it. What I'm saying is, you can succeed very well as an architect by being a creative prima donna, but you can also succeed very well by seeking other pathways, or even by being a manager and an integrator of other people's skills. The architect is the leader of the design team, a team of diverse talents and other professions, and to lead them you need to know enough about what all the others do to command their respect. The better you are at seeing the big picture at the same time as seeing the detail, the better you can do this and the more satisfaction you'll get out of it. Now, I knew none of this when I left school and little of it when I left university. I think what made me good at the job was that I never stopped loving the learning of new tricks. One of the best things about the profession of architecture is that you have the opportunity to oversee the construction of your own creations. Making a design that will be buildable is a strict discipline in itself. Making the same design with elegance and sufficient to answer all the human requirements of its users and its investors is a fantastically rewarding experience, though not for the faint-hearted. Another thing that is quite fun, but can also be quite scary, is because you have responsibility for budgets of millions and sometimes hundreds of millions, you will often find yourself liaising directly with the top people in your client's organisation, even when you yourself are fairly junior. The worst challenges for me are the insidious ones that creep up on you. It's quite possible to sleepwalk into becoming a specialist. You become an expert in healthcare, for example, and in a year you know the exact specification of the hinges and ironmongery of every door in an acute ward. Don't get me wrong, ironmongery and joinery are fascinating subjects, but next year the regulations will change and you have to keep up, and then you find you're on a treadmill. After a while you're losing your head chasing rules and regulations and worrying more about avoiding getting sued because some poor person has slipped in the shower on a floor tile that you specified, rather than about the excitement of the job. So when I was offered the chance to take a senior role in a country that I'd never heard of, I jumped at it and I never looked back. When you work abroad, no one expects you to know all the details of the local regulations. Instead, you're expected to do whatever's necessary to keep things moving forwards. For that, you need a positive mental attitude and the ability to create clear roadmaps in difficult circumstances. And that has given me great satisfaction. Why do I say difficult circumstances? Because they always are difficult. Buildings are ridiculously complicated machines, and you never get them perfectly right in all the practical and cultural ways that they need to be right. The biggest challenge is always the client. They rarely understand anyone's point of view except their own, whereas you have to create an embodiment of your vision of their requirements. And you have to do that by the strength of your own willpower and the coordination of the efforts of lots of other people's skills. Well, the construction industry is complex, fascinating. Every building is different. You rarely have the chance to make a prototype. You always feel that you could have done the same job better next time, but next time it's not the same. Architecture is truly a profession where there is never a dull moment, or if there is one, it's only because you have been hiding your own head under the blanket. I have a philosophy of life that says, don't wish you could be doing what you love. Instead, love what you're doing. Do it well and do lots of it. And this philosophy has seen me very well and very happily through a diverse and challenging career. Thank you very much.